Hello, Association Nation. It is so good to have you back. We've got an amazing guest with us for this week's episode. We've got the one, the only Chuck Swirsky. He is a Chicago sports media legend. I've loved watching his coverage of the Bulls over the last, I think, over 15 years, probably. And just excited to have him on the show. He's had a long career in sports media. He's been all over the place, but super excited to have you, Chuck.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Good to be with you guys.
Yeah. To get started, we're gonna put you in a full court press. We don't know what your basketball experience is, Chuck, but we're gonna hope that you have the skill set to get through it.
Okay, I'll try my best.
Perfect. All right, here we go with the full court press. So, Chuck, who was your favorite NBA team growing up?
My favorite NBA team growing up were the Baltimore Bullets.
Any players we'd recognize from any of those rosters?
Earl the Pearl Monroe, Kevin Lockery, and Wes Unseld. And, oh, by the way, Gus Johnson and Dave DeBusschere, back in my generation, they had a ferocious one-on-one battle in the paint. The Knicks and Bullets series in the Eastern Conference, wow.
That's great. So, Chuck, tell us, did you have any playing days? Like, tell us about Chuck Swirsky, the young basketball player, if that was a thing or not.
And the answer is, I was horrible. Honestly, I'd like to make up a story and say I was great. I was the starting point guard for the Interlake High School Saints in Bellevue, Washington, but that would be a lie. I was a bad athlete, but I will say this, and I'm being very truthful about this. I tried out for my junior high school basketball team, Highland Junior High School, again in Bellevue. At that time, Bellevue was almost like a little suburb of Seattle. Now, of course, it's like a major metropolis. Anyway, I got cut, and I know in my heart I made that team, and my friends told me, you crushed it. And so basically, I don't know why I got cut, but it actually helped me down the road. I'm not comparing myself to MJ, who got cut from his seventh grade team, but I will tell you this, it really motivated me, and it really put the emphasis on sports communication, doing anything I could.
That's great. So this might be the moment, but so was that the moment? When did you know you weren't going to make it to the league, Chuck?
I knew I wasn't going to make it into the league when I was in the second grade, and everyone had gone through a growth spurt. And, here I am, and I'm looking up, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, what happened? And I remember I went home to my mom, and she said, you know what? God has a plan for you. And sure enough, he did.
Well, that's incredible. Everyone's moment comes at a different time, and so I can definitely relate on the second grade part. Mine might have been just after conception. But Chuck, what NBA organization over the years has continually impressed you? Front office, to the way things are done. You've seen the way that a lot of these teams are run and seen behind the curtains.
Yeah, well, again, San Antonio is San Antonio. I think it speaks for itself. Now, having said that, you also have to understand you have to have a little luck here. And I mean, Tim Duncan really should have gone to Boston, to be quite candid with you. In any other situation other than the lottery, the Celtics probably, and Rick Pitino, it changed his whole journey and path as an NBA head coach. I mean, if Boston gets Tim Duncan, who knows what would have happened with the Celtics and Pitino and everything else. But I mean, you look at what the Spurs have done, and with Pop taking over for Bob Hill, a former head coach, by the way, of the Sonics. And I mean, the Spurs are just getting it done. I mean, they get Wemby. Come on, really?
Yeah.
I mean, they get David Robinson. Seriously? But again, you know what? You make your breaks and you do your best to build around the club, and it's San Antonio.
Yeah. So how about this? When it comes to, you've covered a lot of teams and players. Who's the player that you've had the most fun covering, and who was the best interview you've ever had?
Okay. Well, I've covered, again, players in the 70s when I was in Seattle doing my glorified internship at Cairo Radio. So I've covered players in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and then, of course, a couple of decades in the 2000s. So my number one enjoyable player to be around, without any question, is Joakim Noah.
Yes. I'm so glad you said that. Sorry.
I love Joe. He has such a free spirit. He doesn't have one cruel bone in his body. He loves people. He loves life. I can't say enough about him. And the team that when I first joined the Bulls in 2008 after leaving Toronto for 10 years, I mean, they had a group that was as close as any team in any sport I've ever covered. And remember, I've done Major League Baseball. I did pre-, and post for the Bears, especially the '85 Bears. I did pre-intermission and post for the Red Wings when they won a couple of Stanley Cups. I've done major college play-by-play for 18 years. So I've seen a lot, and I've been blessed. But I'll tell you what, you have Joakim Noah, you have Luol Deng, you have Kirk Heinrich, you got Taj Gibson, you got a rookie Derrick Rose, and I could go on and on and on. Kyle Korver, CJ Watson. I mean, that club had so much going on for itself. And unfortunately, they never could get past, some Eastern Conference powers. But I would say Joakim Noah was without any question my guy in passion.
Yeah, well, I always loved it. I think it was for Bulls TV, maybe, but anytime you come on, hey, Chuck Attack.
Yep.
Loved the nickname Chuck Attack. That's so
Yeah.
great. I work with a guy named Chuck, and he has that nickname because of you. So loved all your Joakim interviews. That's
Yes.
for sure.
Awesome. So, your list of credentials and accomplishments is pretty long. What's your proudest moment personally in sports media?
Well, I mean, like the National Bobblehead Hall of Fame.
Yeah, we saw
I
that.
mean, I'll never forget when I was, and again, I'm dating myself, but I don't really care. I went to a Seattle Rainiers game at the old Six Stadium in Seattle, and they had bobbleheads. And, you would go to concessions, you get a program, you get, some popcorn, and they would have these bobbleheads. And I was just locked in. I was mesmerized by these things. You would touch the top of the cap and they would, just bobble around. And I'm thinking, wow. And I never had a bobblehead until when I was doing the Raptors. They gave me not one, but two bobblehead nights. And there was a talking bobblehead. And then when I went to the Bulls, two bobbleheads, another talking bobblehead, and the second bobblehead is going to be released in 2 weeks.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome.
But all candor, I mean, like, I'm just grateful. I mean, I think there are 4 halls of fame that I'm in. And I mean, I never anticipated or expected this to be in the Chicago Sports Hall of Fame. It is probably one of the greatest things that's ever happened because of the luminaries that are in the hall. And so here I am.
That's great. Is there a player throughout your NBA coverage that you were the most starstruck by when you got to see them, meet them, see them up close?
Wow, that's a great question because I mean, there are so many. I mean, I met Wilt Chamberlain as a kid. They used to have double headers at the old Seattle Center Coliseum. And they would bring in the Lakers, they would bring in the Warriors, they would bring in, at that time, the San Diego Rockets became the Houston Rockets, and Wilt Chamberlain was playing for the Lakers, and the second game was against Seattle. So my neighborhood had the high school coach of Sammamish, Alan Pizzolato's dad, Alex Pizzolato. Alan was a very, very close friend of mine. We went to the NBA preseason doubleheader. Wilt Chamberlain is sitting by himself about maybe one side over in the concourse area in the lower bowl. And all of a sudden, I notice Wilt Chamberlain. Well, like everybody and their brother looks at Wilt Chamberlain and makes a mad dash. Now, remember, I'm the smallest kid around, and I'm jumping up and down, and my program actually touched the top of his head, not intentionally. And he gave me this 180 look, and his eyes were like, and I don't blame him, but it wasn't intentional. But like I met Oscar Robertson. Of course, when I was in Chicago, obviously I covered Jordan, and he was tremendous. And I mean, there have been so many wonderful players.
Yeah, so it's one thing to be in awe because of the celebridom maybe of somebody, but in terms of performance and just talent, who's a guy that you were like, man, this dude, it's a treat to cover this game or just to watch this person play?
Yeah, no question. It was Jordan. And he is the greatest player I've ever seen. The second greatest player was Kareem. And because, you know, I get it. We live in a world, especially covering sports now with this, with social media and whatnot, that we look at sports as short term. All of a sudden, one guy leaves. Oh, let's talk about Cooper Flag. We got Wemby. We got the next guy coming up. Well, I've been blessed to see a lot of great players. And I'm going to shock some people here, but actually, LeBron's not even in my top 5. And here he is, the leading all-time scorer. But, there are so many other players. Bill Russell revolutionized the game from a defensive standpoint. People think that Bill Russell was some 6'11" guy that ran the floor like a gazelle, and he did run the floor well. This guy was 6'9", and he would block shots. And remember, and people who say, well, in that era, how many bigs were there? You had Chamberlain, you had Russell, maybe you had, Johnny Red Kerr of Syracuse. But I don't care. Bill Russell would have been fabulous in any era. And, so if there was one player, though, it was Jordan. Jordan wanted to take your heart out every game. And not only did he want to do that, he wanted to play every game. You go back and look. You can Google right now if you wish, or people watching your podcast and can look at how many games Jordan played at the tail end of his career with the Bulls and with the Wizards. I mean, this guy knew the value of someone paying hard-earned money to come watch Michael Jordan play. And he did not want to disappoint. And covering him was amazing because having followed his career, he was able to sustain a mark of excellence every season. And I still maintain, had he not retired, the Bulls would have won 8 in a row. They were better than that Houston Rockets ball club, with all due respect to Rudy T and all them, Akeem and all whatnot. That the Bulls would have been driven to win those 2 series. And we'll never know, but that would have been 8 in a row. Think about that.
Yeah, it's amazing. So you've done TV and radio. Do you prefer TV or radio better?
You know what? It doesn't matter. I've done both. Radio, you can be a little bit more descriptive. You can really set the course of a broadcast on radio because you can pull a U-turn in the second quarter and go off on a tangent, where in TV, really, you've got the visual, right? But you also have a producer, you have a director, and they are really pulling the strings here. So if you come up with an idea during the game and the producer or director say, you know what, maybe we'll put that on the back burner, but right now we're going to go here, we're going to go there. You know what? You're at the mercy of a producer and director, and that's fine. They're in the truck for a reason. But I've done both, and I like both. When someone says, hey, you're doing TV tonight, I'm doing TV tonight, it's great. There is no dichotomy between the two.
Yeah. Hey, we got to ask, just out of personal reasons, you came across one of our videos with Jack Sikma.
Yes.
And watched that. Do you mind me asking, how did you stumble across that? What did you think? Jack's a friend of ours now, and Brett, it's like his distant cousin or something.
Like a 12th cousin removed kind of situation.
Yeah. Well, we'll take it.
I love Jack. You know what?
Okay.
I'm glad you mentioned this. And I do watch, and you have to know, I lived and died with the Sonics. I was there for the expansion year. They would have Sunday ball day, and you go to Seattle Center Coliseum. They would draw like 4,000 fans. It was like crazy. So I grew up in Seattle. I go to school at Ohio U because I got a scholarship, and then I went back home. And I was all set to go to grad school at the University of Washington. And then Cairo Radio offered me a glorified, quote unquote, internship Pete Gross was the sports director. Wayne Cody was, working the sports department. And so I was doing everything, like anything they want, you got. And I would do fill in on air work. Well, in 1977, it was Jack's rookie year, 77, 78. And my job, one of the jobs, was to go into the Sonics locker room with a microphone and tape players after a game and get that 20-second soundbite, go back to the station, and then cut it up, put the tape together so Pete Gross from Morning Drive could say, hey, the Sonics beat Philadelphia last night. Jack Sikma had 18 points, 10 rebounds, and he talked about his performance. Boom. Well, that was really my job, to give Pete Gross the audio. So I got to know Jack and very well. And, we found out that Jack was not only from the Midwest, but, he had a lot of ties to people in the Midwest. And we started talking about, life in the Midwest. And I met his parents and his brother. I think his brother's name was Bob. And Denny Bridges was his coach and in college at Illinois Wesleyan. And we just hit it off. We clicked and we were inseparable. We did so many things together. And then Wally Walker was traded by Portland to Seattle early in the season. And Wally Walker, Tom Lagarde, Joe Hassett, Jack Sikma, and we socialized with one another. I'm 22, 23 at the most, and I'm having a great time. And Jack and I love Jack. And I'm so glad he's in the Hall of Fame. It was long overdue. He wasn't a good player. He was a great, great player. And if the rules existed back then as they are now, let me tell you what, Jack would have been a prolific scorer. I know he had that inside pivot move, but he could shoot the ball. He could shoot the rock. And I love that Sonics team. Remember, they lost Game 7 to the Bullets in Seattle. And that game was nationally televised on a delayed basis. That game started hours after the end of the game. And in those days, no social media. There was nothing. In fact, Jack, after Game 7, he was so disappointed. He went back home. He was driving a brown Cadillac. And I think he just went home and he just chilled out. But then the following year, of course, they won the title. But he was a great, great player.
Yeah, it was fun to chat with him. He rehashed actually a few of those things you're talking about. So I'm like, oh, I've got reference for this now. Well, you survived the full court press. Great job, Chuck. I'd like to think you made that
made JV in our book. So
yes, yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, at least. And now we'll transition to another portion of the show where we talk about the evolution of the game.
Okay.
You've seen a lot of ball from the sidelines, and over the course of the years, I'm sure that's looked different from when you first started. What's some of the biggest changes that you've seen in the league since covering it? Let's start schematically, just in terms of what teams are doing on the floor.
Okay, well, because everything, you have to look at the big picture here. There are eras in basketball based on not only the style of play, but also the physicality and just the osmosis of nutrition, how big these players are, how fast these players are, and also officiating, because this is a very difficult league to officiate. Without any doubt, this is the toughest. You can complain about balls and strikes, and they're going to get some type of system in place with a robot to call, is it a foul ball? Is it a fair ball? Is it a strike? Is it a ball? Whatever the case may be. In basketball, when I grew up, the big men dominated the NBA. Every team needed a big man. And if you didn't have a big man, you might as well forget it. You had no chance to win. Now, with small ball, if you can't play small ball in today's world, you are in big trouble. And think about this. We went from one extreme in the 70s. Okay, now granted, it's 50 years old, but we went from one extreme and then to the middle where they started to kind of put the toe in the water because the FIBA and European rules and the style of play in Europe, where the bigs would step out and they would start shooting the long ball. And there were a couple players in the era when I was a kid that would shoot, that was, a tall player. There was a guy by the name of Mel Counts, and he played at Oregon State. He also played for a number of teams, Lakers, Celtics, and whatnot. He could step outside and shoot. But, not until really Nowitzki came in the 98 draft, was that something where you could say, okay, this is not going away. This guy has reinvented the court. And then what happened when I was in Toronto, it came down to LaMarcus Aldridge or Andrea Bargnani. And Brian Colangelo drafted Andrea Bargnani because, as I affectionately called him, El Mago, he wanted to shoot the three. He really was not a post player, had no desire to play the post, and he had a reputation coming out of Euro that he would be an NBA guy who could spread the floor, a stretch, so to speak. And it never really materialized with him. But a lot of bigs started to do that. They were coached in college, they were coached at AAU ball, and all of a sudden, here we are.
Yeah, and what about media coverage as well?
Wow. Well, I mean, look at us. Look what's happened. I mean, for example, I'll go back to Cairo radio. I was the only radio reporter. There was no sports talk show. There were nothing. I mean, Wayne Cody did a sports talk show. I produced his show. I would fill in for him. But on a coverage basis, I was the only one who went into the Sonics locker room. There was a reporter from the Post-Intelligencer, the Seattle Times, the Tacoma Tribune, I think that's what they called it, and the Bellevue Journal-American. And all of a sudden, some 22-year-old guy comes in with a microphone and a Marantz tape recorder that, looked like, just a Reader's Digest magazine. It was like so small. And I would carry it under my left arm, microphones there. I'd go in front of downtown Freddie Brown or Dennis Johnson or Jack or, Lonnie Shelton or Marvin Webster and all these guys. And I mean, it was just me. And, in fact, the day the Sonics were 5-17, Jack Sikma probably told you this story. Jack didn't play much his first month and a half in the season. The Sonics were 5-17, and Lenny Wilkins made a change. Bob Hopkins, who was on Bill Russell's staff, was fired, and Lenny took over. And I'm at the radio station, and I find out the hotel where the Sonics are staying at in Denver. I called Paul Silas and told him that Bob Hopkins had been fired and Lenny had taken over. And he goes, "What?" Because again, we didn't have social media. There's no Twitter. I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, I need to hang up." I said, "Well, before you hang up, can I get like a quick comment?" He goes, "Okay." And I love Paul, and his son, Steven's awesome. And Paul was such a wonderful gentleman. But I mean, that's how this crazy world works. And that's how players back in those days found out. I guess to a certain degree, they're starting to find out through Twitter, whether they've been traded or cut or whatever the case may be.
So it sounds like one of the biggest changes has just been how quick news comes and goes and information is transferred and how many people are doing it. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yes.
So what's an insight into the league as a media member that maybe casual fans might not be aware of? What's something about the league that we maybe don't see, but you get to see as a media guy?
Well, I'll say this. I think, and this has been going on for a while, but now it's so competitive with the electronic media, with the written media, with podcasts, with social media, and everyone. I mean, look at Shams. I've known Shams since he was literally in college at Loyola in Chicago. I mean, and he just decided, I'm building my brand. I'm going to build my brand at 21 years old. And he would come down to the United Center and ingratiate himself, get to know people, introduce himself, and formed a bond of trust with agents, players, coaches. And so you had Woj breaking Woj bombs, boom, 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 boom. The only guy I could compare that to in the generation when I was covering the NBA was Peter Vesey. Peter Vesey was the guy who busted stories because he knew agents in New York. There weren't a lot of agents back in those days, but all of a sudden, the proliferation of agents, and then all of a sudden, if the agent wanted to get his story out, they would call Peter Vesey, or vice versa. Well, now there are so many, but the predominantly notarized individual was Woj. Woj goes to St. Bonaventure. Shams now has the mantle of being the guy. And there are a lot of people who are trying to knock on Shams' door, and a lot of very good reporters, but that's the biggest change I've seen in media.
Yeah. So switching gears back to the Chicago Bulls, they've had their share of tough seasons in recent history. I've had a lot of fun as a fan with that. How do you keep the excitement and the energy when calling games when maybe the hope is not as high as one would hope?
Okay, so this is what I tell young people going into the business. You don't broadcast to the scoreboard, because if you start doing that, you lose the integrity of your job. And my job is to report what I see in front of me. Now, do I want the Bulls to win? 100% yes. But at the same time, you've got to have credibility. And that doesn't mean that you attack people, because I never go personal and I never decide, you know what, I've got an agenda. The only agenda I have is that I get to the arena. I want to be completely prepared. I want to know the 12th man on the roster as much as I know about the first man. And because I owe it to my listenership, I owe it to myself, and I owe it really to the craft. So I mean, listen, it's been hard. We're in this play-in tournament 3 straight years. And, Bulls fans, have been the gap between Jordan's retirement and the 25, 26 Bulls, and then you could go on 27, 28, 28, 29. I don't know when the Bulls are going to get back in the top 4 or 5. That's the, challenge, and that's what they want. But Jordan left the Bulls in 1998. So some fans that come to our games never even saw Jordan in a Bulls uniform. The only connection they have to Jordan is when we play the highlight, before games to, get the crowd involved, or when they see the Jordan statue entering the United Center. But I do think that we've got some young players now that they can form a base. And let me tell you what, Mattis Buzelis is going to be a player. I'm telling you this right now. And his skill set, and the great thing about Buzelis is he doesn't want to be a good player. He wants to be a great player. He wants to be coached, and he wants to get better. He loves the game. Guys, there are a lot of players who like the game. There are players who flat out love the game. He loves the game.
This is music to Brett's ears.
Oh, you have no idea.
He tells me this every day. He's like, Buzelis could be, I don't know if he's a 1 on a team, but he might be a 2 on a contending team someday. And so I think he's also very high. I love the pick, personally. I wish my Jazz, yeah, we won't get into that because Cody Williams, maybe there's still some time, but tough to watch that play out.
Yep, I get you.
Yeah, you get it. So 82 games is a lot. You had mentioned you come and you honor the craft. You try to stay present in the game and the integrity of calling it rather than focusing maybe on the bleakness of a scoreboard in the middle of the season. What does the grind look like as a media member for 82 games? Are there times that you're like, man, this is kind of taking a toll on me, between the travel and the logistics and everything else?
Well, I'm fortunate because I'm in a generation where we flew and fly charter, where beforehand, like in the Sigma days in the 70s, Bob Blackburn, who is an institution in Seattle, is the first voice of the Sonics. He had to fly along with the rest of the Sonics commercially. And so that meant that you play, for example, in Oakland against the Warriors. You spend the night, You probably get back to your hotel room. If you're hungry, you have a sandwich. You get to bed at 1 in the morning. You have to take the first flight back either to Seattle or you've got a game that night somewhere in Denver or at that time, Kansas City or wherever. So, I mean, I'll never complain. Listen, this is, to me, it's not a grind. It's a passion. This is what I wanted to do since I was a kid. When I grew up in Seattle, actually in Bellevue, my father died when I was in elementary school in the 6th grade. And I wanted to be in sports for such a long time. I would go to bed with a flashlight and the NBA directory and memorize players where they went to college and what teams they were with. And I was so driven. So now this is everything I've done: Major League Baseball, NFL, college football, college basketball, covered hockey with the Red Wings. I mean, to me, I wanted to be an NBA announcer before the NBA was cool. So this is great. I'll never complain about anything.
Yeah. What's to flip it back to the players side? What's how do you see the toll of a season play out on the players though? Like, because it's one thing you talked about, it's a passion. Hopefully, it's a passion for a lot of the players too. But their bodies get worn
Yes.
down. Like, what do you see in an 82 game grind of a season? What do you see from the players with that?
Well, here's the situation. I get where a lot of people are saying, can we cut back from 82 to 68? Less games per week, more rest. Okay, that is all well and good. I get that, and there's some validity to that. The issue is, are you willing to take a pay cut? Are the owners willing to take a pay cut from corporate partners who put the names on the floor and the LED lights and all that comes with sponsorship? I mean, that is a big price to pay to shave 14 games. I
Hmm.
mean, if you say to a player, hey, you know what? You're going to make 25 million last year, but you know what? Now that we're going to prorate things and you're going to be making 16. What? I mean, you're like, no, 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 no. So that's one issue. Um, the misconception fans have about the players is that they think like the players are robots, that every game they're going to get 20 and 10. And when they have a bad night, they get ripped. Players go on social media. Most of the teams now prohibit players from turning on cell phones either right before a game or at halftime because it really poisons the brain. And I mean this sincerely. Players will go on the phone and they'll read what some guy who has no connection whatsoever, and they'll read that they got ripped because they went 2 for 8 from the floor. And and that player is a human being. He takes that to heart, and it really bugs him. It bothers him. And I'm thinking, you got some guy in a basement in Amsterdam, who just saw your box score and he's ripping you, and like you're blowing your mind. Why? I mean, but that is again social media, and but players like being on social media. They want an attachment and somewhat of a connection with their fan base. But when it can get kind of ugly, I think a player really gets depressed over things.
Yeah. I'm glad Brett and I didn't have access to social media in terms of our games, even albeit high school and a little bit of college.
So where'd
'Cause
you
like you
guys go
said,
to high school?
we're from Twin Falls, Idaho, so we're Southern
Okay.
Idaho guys. Yep.
All right.
And
Yep.
then Brett went on to play at Montana State, Northern,
Northern. Yeah.
and then I was up at a little JUCO called Clark College in Vancouver, Washington.
Nice.
Yeah, you're probably
Oh
probably
yeah, I know the areas. Yeah.
yeah,
I'll tell you, you
absolutely.
know what it was? A great place in Idaho is Sandpoint, Idaho. It's a beautiful place. Wow. Yes. Montana used to be a good kept secret, but not anymore.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
Because Phil Jackson busted that.
Yeah,
Oh, you got to come to Montana. Then all of a sudden, Carole King, I'm going to Montana. Yeah. Well, I think, the gaming issue used to be like persona non grata. I mean, there are huge signs everywhere. And now, of course, gaming is big because they're paying a ton of money. And, they've kind of, um, like with young people, especially that, who are like, for example, you go to an NBA game and you've got all the stats in front of you on the scoreboard or on the side or whatever. Some fans actually, the game is secondary to whether or not they've
Hmm.
got, this guy is going to have a triple double, or, I'm one rebound away. And you
Yeah.
hear this and you think, oh my gosh, like, when you go to a game, you want your hometown team to win, or you want your favorite player to do well. So that's one thing that really, there's some uncharted waters still going on with that. But I think that expansion, it's going to be very intriguing to see how the owners handle it, and whether or not there will be expansion, or whether or not they table this because of the TV contract. The TV money is astronomically big, huge, more than I think anyone anticipated. If someone told you that NBA teams would be sold for billions of dollars, billions, you would have said, no way, yes way. So I think, if I'm an owner and you want to expand to Seattle and Las Vegas, and I hope Seattle should get a team, they should never have lost that team. Thank you. And there's a story behind that if you want to get into it. Um, but if they're going to get it, there's going to have to be some adjustment to the fee to get into the league. And then, do you wait a year or two before expansion teams can take money from the TV package? All these things are going to come into play.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to switch back to the Bulls, as a fan, gotta go
Yeah.
there. So what are you most excited for this upcoming Bull season? Because I know for me, there's definitely some things like we don't look like we're contenders, but like there's a few things I'm excited for. What are those things?
Well, number one, it's going to be interesting to see what the roster looks like. Even though, I think Okoro is going to be a different player with the Bulls than he was with Cleveland, because the Bulls really need a guy on the wing who can defend. And so I love Lonzo Ball, and I'm glad Lonzo is with the contending team.
Yeah, I agree.
To me, Lonzo is, his dad is outspoken, as we know, and you got LaMelo, and LaMelo is becoming, in my opinion, if he can stay healthy, he will be a fantastic player in this league. I still think he shoots too many threes, but he's still a really gifted player. Lonzo is, to me, the consummate pro. Getting to know him and see where he's persevered with that injury, wow. But I do think the Bulls, I think Bazelis is storyline number one, probably 1, 2, and 3, to see where that second season's going to take him. He's in the lab every day. Um, but I want to see what this roster looks like. I mean, they have a lot of free agents coming off the books. They're going to have a ton of cap room in 2026. So I would say this year is going to be a year where I could see, probably some improvement, but what that means, I'm not sure. I think Kobe White is a legit star.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah. I think he is too. I'm not even a Bulls guy, and I've watched enough and heard enough from Brett where I'm like, I'm a believer. This guy, he really has it. It seems like he can continue on this trajectory. It's not just empty volume of a team that has to have somebody shoot the ball, because sometimes you see that, right? I'm sure you've seen that
Yes.
over the years. It's like there's 48 minutes, there's 105 possessions. Like someone has to shoot the ball, but I think
Yes.
Kobe is the real deal.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think Bazelis, to play off what you were saying, I think however good he is kind of where our floor goes up to. Because I think if he could come in second year, be a 15 to 17 a game scorer with flashes of all-star level stuff, we have a shot at being I think maybe a top 7 team in the East. But if he comes out and just kills it, like he raises our ceiling quite a bit because if he and Kobe, and we'll see what happens with Giddey in the contract, and we do have some young kind of fun high pace pieces that could be really interesting.
Yeah.
But along with the excitement, there's also concerns. What are if you had like what was maybe like what's your big concern for this upcoming season for the Bulls?
Well, I mean, number one, you have to look, what the direction they're going to go with Vooch. And by the way, you know what? If I had a Mount Rushmore of good people that I've been around in my life, Vooch would be on the Mount Rushmore of people. Nikola Vucevic is awesome. He is so unassuming, and he just loves life, loves people. Different personality than Joe. Joe definitely is on my Mount Rushmore. I mean, he would be in the middle of Mount Rushmore. Everyone, but Vooch is so kind, and I mean, he deserves to be on a contender. I mean, the clock's running on Vooch's career.
Hmm.
He's got 1 year left. He's making 20 million a year, and I'm hoping that a contending team will say, you know what, we need that one more guy who will be a stretch. And so, but eventually this club's going to need a big. I mean, Jalen Smith is really a 4. He's not a 5. And, um, you know, um, Essen Gay is 6'9". He's long. That's the number 1 pick by the Bulls. He's long and athletic. He's not ready yet. He's second youngest player in the draft to Cooper Flag. So we really can't expect a lot out of him this year. But I do like his upside. I talked to 2 GMs of the league who will tell me the truth, not like just GM speak, and they know that, I'm with the Bulls and all that stuff, so they put stuff out there. I know GMs who will always tell me the truth. They had on their draft boards, they had Essengay going anywhere between 10 to 16. So, because I think people now, especially if your roster's loaded, and the Bulls, I would say they're not loaded, but for teams that are loaded, they could stash Essengay and make sure, okay, we're going to bring him along slowly. And it'll be interesting to see how the Bulls handle Essengay this year.
Hmm. Yeah, I think for me, one of the concerns as a Bulls fan, it's not a concern. I guess it's more like, what happens with like roles on this team? Like, what's, when it comes to Giddey, and if he takes only the qualifying offer, is he going to be just trying to put on a Giddey show rather than playing team ball? Kobe, is he going to continue to kind of climb that ladder as a scorer? And even just like guys like Patrick Williams, who I think as any Bulls fan would say we were disappointed in what happened based on, he's a guy that has all the tools, but just can't seem to put them together.
Yeah.
But I think those are probably my biggest concerns is how is everyone going to fit together? Because we have a whole bunch of guards, and now we have a whole bunch of kind of 6'7" to 6'9" wing guys.
Yep.
And so seeing how that all plays out.
Yeah, when Patrick Williams was drafted, he went from being probably 10 or 11 in the draft to all of a sudden the top 5 player. And trust me when I say this, had the Bulls not taken him at 4, he would have gone probably either 5, 6, or 7. That's how he rose dramatically. And so this wasn't some fluke where, oh my gosh, we took some guy that was going to be at like 16 and we put him at 4. It wasn't like that at all. I mean, he was high on a lot of boards, but he got hurt early, and then it just didn't click. And I'm hoping that this will be the year because sooner or later, if it doesn't happen, maybe a change of scenery. I don't know. That's way above my pay grade. But I know that everyone in the organization is pulling for him. If you got to know him and how respectful and polite he treats people and how hard he works, it's not like this guy shows up at 4:30 on a day of a game and doesn't put the time in. He puts the time in, but it just hasn't translated from his 1 year at Florida State, where he was coming off the bench as a 6th man, to the 4th pick in the draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, feels like that development's not always linear, right? There's different
Correct.
things that guys have to experience and go through. And we actually just had Chris Childs on recently, and his path was a lot different because he was undrafted CBA, and it wasn't until he was 25 that he was actually a rookie in the league, whereas Pat's probably 19, 1 year, and again, not a starter. So to have the expectations of guys, particularly if you're drafted high, I think it's tough for these kids, because that's what they are, to come produce and make the most out of their situations. And so I'm most concerned for Brett's mental health, our phone calls to go well throughout the season. Hope the Bulls have a good season. There's a good outlook. And again, Vucevic does seem like a great guy. I did love him in all the Lord of the Rings movies when he saved Middle Earth. Thought that was good. But yeah, it's fun for me to be kind of a secondary fan of the Bulls through Brett. And I'll have to tune into some games and
I hope you do.
Listen to you. I mean, a new friend in Chuck, so I'm excited. And if you've got 5 more minutes, I know you got to call a game here just a sec. We've got a fun segment we like to finish with called Garbage Time.
Sure.
And again, not implying you're playing Garbage Time. Just
I would take it.
We're giving you some garbage minutes here.
Yes, thank you.
So for Garbage Time, off the top of your head, what's the biggest blooper or fumbling of words on a call that you can remember?
The biggest blooper I had was with Bill Wennington when I called him Will Purdue.
Oh, it's just your basic NBA white boy, It is
7-footers.
Yeah, name Will. What about like what NBA name did you really butcher? I mean, that's one to kind of misremember somebody, but what's a name where you're sounding it out, even though you've done some prep, but you still butchered in the moment?
I butchered when I first came to the league, Vitaly Potemko.
Oh, for the Celtics? Yeah.
Was Giannis a tough one to kind of get a hold of for a minute? It took me 3 years as a fan.
You know what? I mean, it was initially, but because the Bulls and Bucks are in the same division, we saw the line. We played them twice in preseason. So essentially, I had six times to gradually improve it, to grow up the grade.
That's
because, a lot of guys in the league don't want to even touch it. They just call him Giannis.
Right.
That's the easy way out. I don't take the easy way out.
It's true. It's very true. Well, Chuck, is there anything that you want to promote or call attention to? Obviously, we know what you're up to, but it sounds like you've got some other fun stuff going on, even in the off season up in Canada right now.
Yep. As we were taping this, I'm doing a game tonight in Winnipeg, and it's been great. It's the CEBL, which is kind of a summer league in Canada, 10 teams ranging from Montreal to Vancouver. It's been great. It's been a lot of fun, but now it's time to kind of get a few weeks of rest and then get ready for the NBA season, which is going to be fun because I think this thing is wide open, especially in the East, because a lot of key players are missing, and New York has a new coach. It'll be interesting to see how, from the Tibbs era to Mike Brown. So there are a lot of interesting storylines for sure, but thank you.
Yeah. Well, it was so great getting to know you, Chuck, and chatting. And maybe one of these days down the road, we'd love to maybe have you on again sometime and just pick your brain on some other stuff. So
that'd be great. Anytime, guys. Thank you.